As we head into week 2 of the final stage, the battle is on for a coveted spot in the Overwatch League's season playoffs. After a rough start, how can the London Spitfire rebound against the Shock and Dynasty?
Jenkins is destroying London Spitfire limb from limb!
Malik goes one-on-one with Philly superstar DPS EQO in the latest installment of On Point.
A lot of people didn't know about you beforehand. How's it been so far since you've gotten into the league and made a name for yourself?
And order in the court. The Honorable Judge Monty returns with some harsh verdicts.
Another batch of Overwatch League miscreants to deal with.
Plus, Fisher, Fraggy, and Gesture help you up your Reinhardt game.
They are the forest, and he is the lumberjack.
This is Watchpoint.
Welcome to MLG's Watchpoint. I'm Uber, joined by Monty, Cristo, Doa, and Mr. X. Wrist injuries going all around the Overwatch League, and Puckett suffered one as well. He is out today. Gentlemen, how are we despite that?
Fine. I'm looking forward to being the
Strong
host.
wrists?
I'm going to be the host next week. We're just going to keep a new face in every
I'm just going to keep going down the line. Everyone's going to get it.
Recycling all the guys to the recap show back in. Yeah, I like it.
Why not? Yeah, it's basically the recap show, except looking forward and with Doa.
That's right. Looking forward with Doa. That's the new name.
Looking forward with Doa.
Looking forward with Doa.
That's it. That fills me with optimism and hope as a show.
Let's just call it The View, because it's really about our views, right? I don't think that's been used yet.
Let's not go there.
I'm not exactly sure there's a show called that already.
I don't think anyone's used that yet.
No.
Somehow I think it's like the opposite in many ways. Anyway, it's time to get you set for week 2, and we'll begin with the team that's facing one of the toughest schedules this week. The London Spitfire began the stage 4 0-2, and now they have to face a San Francisco Shock that appears to be on the rise, as well as a desperate Seoul Dynasty squad. So let's start with that Shock matchup, Mr. X. Who could give London the most trouble on Thursday?
I think it can be Architect and Sinatra. I think since they've kind of made this lineup a little bit more consistent since Krusty has come on, that they haven't been moving a lot of players around. I think you've seen these two really play well. Sinatra can play a very good Zarya, and then Architect, he can play a ton of Widowmaker, a ton of Pharah. I think this team is actually going to have a very good stage 4. I think they can make the playoff.
I think they will, but there are certain issues that I have with them, Mr. X. Like, Architect pops off and wins, pops off on losses. He's sort of like the Saya player of this roster. But I really think that this battle is won and lost in the trenches. Like, when you saw Super go up against Jae-Hong on the Reinhardt, it was a big win for San Francisco. But I think it might be a little bit harder otherwise.
Well, I think all he has to do is play Gesture even. If they can play Gesture even there, I think they're in a good spot, San Francisco.
I don't think he is going to play Gesture even, though. That's the thing.
I think he learned a lot from what he did against Jay.
I think that Gesture is really going to win this matchup for London, because once they win that frontline battle, it's not like Architect popping off has as much meaning any longer. So I bet you that's going to be London's game plan heading into this week. We saw what happened with Fissure versus Super on the Gladiators matchup they had. It was a pretty convincing win for the Gladiators. And guess what? They're going to have to play against Gesture, who also has better DPS to back him up. So I think this is going to be a win for London.
The question is, can you contain a main tank without getting crushed by them, I guess, if that's what you're asking Super to do, right?
I mean, you could play, I mean, they could run like a Brigitte to comp, right, and give Gesture a lot of problems. Just kind of bash him around, make it really difficult.
Good Ryan, too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility there.
Well, Spitfire closed stage 3 with a 5-map victory over the Seoul Dynasty. So, Doa, what do you think will be the biggest factor when these two meet up again this Saturday?
I mean, the thing is you really got to look at the tanks, right? Because, I mean, we just got done talking about Gesture, and over on the Seoul Dynasty side, things are not looking terribly good at the main tank role. Of course, you've got Jae-Hong. I'm like, no, that's the wrong graphic, but sorry, guys, that actually is the right graphic right now.
Still got Doa on payroll.
That's right. No, not yet. I'm going to say some very mean things. Right? Jae-Hong, he ranks no higher than 11th out of all Winstons in all of his stats with that hero. Meanwhile, Ryan, even worse, last in eliminations, next to last in damage done, and he's 17th for damage block, so it's not like he's just sitting there with his shield up the whole time. Miro is better than him statistically in nearly any way, even dies less. So I think, as rough as it's been, and obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but just give Miro another chance. He even tweeted recently this week saying that he felt better, that his mind was in a better place as far as playing the game went, and I think it's time. I mean, Jae-Hong, you had your chance. Let's put a tank back in.
To be fair, Miro probably wouldn't tweet that he got worse.
I
don't really think that would be something he would tweet out.
That is true, but the fact that he went ahead and made that tweet makes makes you wonder.
You saw the clip,
and
though?
maybe give some casters some false hope.
And then also encourage them on this show to talk about how Mira's the better choice and put exterior pressure on the team.
Yeah.
Mira's smart.
That's it.
Next
So which
level.
one going after Noah?
I got your back.
Okay,
Mira.
all
I
right.
got
In all
your back.
fairness, though, you saw the clip when Jaehong's talking about his new tank role, and he's sitting there, I think it was with Munchkin. Munchkin was like, oh, we've got no other choice, do we? Jaehong's like, well, it's just kind of the way it has to be.
I don't understand any of it.
Well, one of the most interesting matchups early in Stage 4 is actually on Wednesday, when the Outlaws take on the Gladiators. Both teams, guys, are 2-0 in this stage, and they are currently the first two teams out of the season playoffs. So, Monty, which individual matchup are you actually going to keep an eye on where Houston faces LA this week?
I do think, first off, we have to say this is such an important matchup for both of these teams because it may well dictate who gets into the season playoffs if both of them are hot. But I'm going to take a look at NYXL because what's so interesting about NYXL as a player is he's been very streaky, especially in his Widow versus Widow. And early on in the season, in Stage 1, we talked about him being the counter sniper, winning these Widow duels. But then in Stage 3, he really dropped off in that exact same matchup where, well, Surefour looked like he was getting better and better on the Widow. But now in Stage 4, we're back, and NYXL is looking magnificent on the Widow once again. As you can see, he's nearly back. He's actually above those Stage 1 numbers in the Widow duel stats. So this is something NYXL back in form, possibly because he's been practicing less Tracer, one would assume, so maybe able to devote a little bit more time to those Widow mechanics. But that's going to be a big deal maker in this match against the Gladiators because it will be a lot about NYXL versus Surefour.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about the tanks again. For some reason, I'm talking about tanks a lot today. I don't know why. Fissure versus Muma, though, it's an interesting matchup. Fissure, of course, has done so much for this team since coming on. He's so good. He's so aggressive. He's such a great individual playmaker. And while Muma is obviously a fantastic tank, I think Fissure has the edge and kind of gives Gladiators the edge in that department. But I think it's going to come down to the little things. I think it's going to come down to the things possibly outside of the tank role this time, despite both of these teams, doing pretty well in that category. I think, like you were saying, Monty, that the DPS are going to end up being a bit of a bigger factor.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about Jake in this matchup, kind of like a Jake versus Bishu matchup, which isn't like usually like a head-to-head in terms of DPS, but yeah, Bishu's going to play. Bishu plays the Brigitte for the LA Gladiators. These are two teams that we saw a decent amount of Brigitte. We saw Jake play it, we saw NYXL play it, Muma played it a little bit. It's how do they deal with Junkrat if the Gladiators want to play Brigitte, if that's a strategy they want to bring in. Jake, very good Junkrat, very effective against Brigitte. They're going to have to get a ton of good value out of their Zarya player. If the Gladiators try and do the same thing back, you have Spree in the game. He's going to get a ton of value out of his Zarya.
I mean, how much are they really shutting down on the Outlaws bringing Brigitte? It's not like you need to bring that in mandatorily to try. That's not even a word. To try and shut down a Genji Tracer, right? We know that's not things that the Outlaws do. So is there a lot of value in coming out of the gates with Brigitte against Houston?
I mean, if it's something that you've scrimmed for a while, I mean, in the same way we talk about Jonak, if we get him a ton of armor, he can go off, right? Shaz is back there as Zenyatta. You get him all charged up. Surefour is a very good Zarya player, and then I know whether you have Hydration or Silkter in the game, right? You can play a lot of different things. I mean, you can play Pharah, you can play Widow with those guys, so there's a lot of different things they can do as a team.
Well, while Houston and Gladiators are on the rise, we've got to keep trucking down the line, and the Uprising look like they actually might be on the fall. Boston lost both matches in Week 1, and they'll get a 2-0 Valiant team on Friday that's looking to solidify their spot in the season playoffs. Doa, how can this Uprising team return to its winning ways, or can it at all?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a mystery, isn't it? And I mean, part of that mystery is putting Aim God in instead of Neko, because like Neko had that really good sort of like sleeper stage, I think, so far in Stage 3, where he had really good stats. We didn't talk about him that much. And then right when we start talking about him, now you've got Aim God coming in. And if you look at these guys statistically, Aim God actually did perform better than Neko overall in week number 1. Now, that is only 1 week of stats, so I don't think we need to pay too much attention to that. Instead, we kind of look at what they bring communication-wise. Aim God spent a couple years in Canada. He can speak English a little bit better than Neko is, so maybe they're kind of trying that out, seeing if a little bit easier communication and support duo with Kellex helps out a bit. It's interesting.
Even though it is a small sample size, though, I think you do have to be impressed that Aim God was able to statistically outperform Neko in a loss, right?
It's a tough loss,
So that's a tough loss, and I think that says a lot.
In a win?
Yeah, exactly. What does it mean in a win? So I think this is definitely something we need to keep our eye on.
Right, well, Matt, of course, Boston had their 14-match regular season win streak snapped last week with those 2 losses. But what did you see last week that the Valiant can kind of take advantage of now with Boston being in a weakened state?
Well, I think, you use Brigitte, you eliminate the fact that Striker can play Tracer, and that is the hero that we've seen him obviously play the best in Overwatch League. As far as Junkrat's very good. You look at some of the Junkrat numbers from last stage, he's like #1 in a lot of categories. but it's still not the same level of like take over the game as like a Tracer would be. And I think you kind of trust your own Widowmaker. If Soon can battle mistakes to about even, you can contain Striker, you like your chances if you're the Valiant. I mean, you have a great front line with Space and Fate as well to combo, so I think that's how I would probably play this. I would try and isolate Striker, make sure he can't be the one to win the game for Boston, make somebody else beat you.
And I think that you actually just attacked the main support position. We saw what New York was doing to Boston during the stage playoffs, and it was a lot of targeting of Kelix. And if we look at the main support stats from Kelix versus Custa, and then bring it all over to the league averages, you'll see that Custa is dying a lot less than Kelix. And you'll say, okay, Kelix, you know, he doesn't look too far different than the league average. But you have to remember, in Kelix's case, he's on a team that's 22-10. If this was a 500 team, if this was a team with a losing win record, Kelix's stats would be a lot worse.
And I mean, Custa played for the Dallas Fuel, right? They're down there with the Dragons and the Mayhem.
We talk about it, hard work goes on in the trenches. I think Monty already pointed that out.
Yeah.
It's a tough environment, and he still's a bit of survivalist. So, look, where does this manifest? Where do we actually see that deficiency in stats play out when we watch these games?
I think it's going to be, you know, when we look at the Widow, like Soon coming in potentially on the Widow and dealing with Kelix, that could be a major defining factor of this matchup.
You know, I would say the Valiant can play a pretty good Widow Genji as well, something that Boston can't exactly do because Mistakes plays their Widowmaker and their Genji. So you could put a lot of pressure on Mistakes with Widow Genji combinations and Kelix as well.
Right, well, we're going to keep cracking on, Matt, and the rest of the Valiant are one of 5 2-0 teams so far in Stage 4. The Philly Fusion are also in that group thanks to some stellar DPS play by Carpe and EQO. Malik Forte sat down with one half of the Fusion's DPS duo for the latest installment of On Point.
All right, EQO. Yo, you know what's funny, man? Like, when we started doing On Point, it was around the same time you came into the league, and you were one of the first people we requested to come here. So I'm glad we finally got you here, man.
Yeah, man. That is EQO, the man from Israel showing up to play for the Fusion.
You came out of nowhere, man. Like, a lot of people didn't know about you beforehand. How's it been so far since you've gotten into the league and made a name for yourself?
At first, when I got into the league, it was kind of a slight struggle because there was so many expectations because Shadowburn was such a good player on the team, and I had to work so hard to like replace someone like him since he was amazing. And I guess that worked out at the end. I feel like I proved myself.
EQO going ham. 2 kills for him with the Dragon Blade.
When you were 3 years old, you moved from Colombia to Israel. Can you tell me a little bit about like your upbringing?
When I first moved to Israel, like obviously I didn't know the language, so I was kind of just like a shy kid. I never like talked to anyone. So like I've been thrown around like from place to place, you know, like we moved around, I switched like a lot of schools.
Right.
So like I also grew up and I just stopped caring, and at some point like I also like stopped going to school because I didn't see the value.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my childhood.
You know, as someone who grew up without a father, I was really compelled, you know, hearing the story about, you know, what happened with your father and stuff. Do you take any like inspiration from that situation, or is there any like fire that burns inside of you because of that?
Every experience, or like every stuff that happens in your life, you should always like take it in a learning way. Because like my dad, you know, passed away like when I was like a teen, I had to like change the way I thought, you know, I had to adapt to the situation.
Yeah.
And so I would say like it definitely made me the person that I am today.
His very first match, his first time on the stage, and he handled this well.
What was the start of your Overwatch journey? When did you kind of like realize like this is the game I want to play and I want to go pro in this?
You know, I was a kid at home. I didn't have like friends. I was just, you know, playing games, you know. And so all I had like was my PC, and I found out about like Overwatch. Obviously, you know, I fell in love. Like Overwatch was an amazing game for me, and I just started playing. And so slowly I started like grinding and improving, and eventually I would hit top 500.
Oh, free field solo, and he's going to take MG instead. There's a couple. Man, EQO is so scary.
Were you always known as EQO? Was that like your moniker all the way up into now, or is that something that you just kind of newly adopted?
There's like intelligence quota,
yeah.
You know, like IQ, and there's like emotional quota. So like EQ 0, so like EQO. I never look at things as like I'm mad or like I'm sad or like happy. I just look at things or like what's needed to be done. And so I kind of adopted that idea of like my name, you know?
What? Yo, that might be my favorite Overwatch name right there, just because you got that deep meaning inside there. That's dope. So it's basically emotional quota.
Yeah,
0. short term, what is kind of like your biggest goal? What's the next void you need to fill in here?
I would say that me as a person, I'm like always looking to be happy.
Right, yeah.
Where I find happiness is success. Whenever I do find success, I reach my goal, I don't feel it at all, and I just want more, you know?
Want more,
And so eventually I'm just chasing this idea of like the big success, or like when I'm actually gonna be happy. And so every time I would reach a goal, I was just greedy and I just wanted more and more and more. And so I would say that got me here where I am now. I wouldn't say that I found happiness yet. And so I'm just in this endless cycle of just, you know, hitting the next goal and the next goal and the next goal.
Right.
And that's how I've been living, I guess, my past 2 years. I've been living like in this way. And I'll probably be living this way for a longer time because I still feel like there's so much I need to actually, you know, be happy, I guess. That's currently my journey, like, with my team.
I gotta say, man, like, I've never really got a chance to sit down and talk to you, but like after this, like, you got a real good head on your shoulders, man. Thank you so much. I know you got a busy schedule trying to win the Overwatch League and stuff. So thank you for sitting down and talking with us, man.
EQO turned heads as a Genji when he first debuted back in Stage 2, but he's been quietly beasting on the Pharah as well. He leads the league in hero damage, elims, and final blows per 10 minutes. He's also got the second fewest deaths on that hero. In addition to EQO and Carpe, the Fusion got a boost in Week 1 with the debut of their new main tank, Sado. And that's where we'll begin today's 6-stack. Oh, let's go. So Fraggy handled all the Fusion's main tank duties, guys, for the first 30 matches of the season, while Sado kind of just sat on the sideline and waited his suspension out. But the South Korean made his presence known when he finally took over the stage, playing for Fraggy on main tank for 7 out of 8 maps so far this week. Taking a look at their Reinhardt numbers from Week 1, Fraggy led in charge kills and damage blocked, while Sado outperformed his counterpart in eliminations, fewer deaths, and Earth Shatter kills. Doa, who should be the main tank going forward? Fraggy or Sado? Is there a difference? Is there a preference? Where do we go?
I mean, it's a tough question, right? And again, we haven't seen a whole lot of Sado, but what we have seen is looked really, really good. I mean, he's like a Fraggy that dies a lot less, which is kind of nice. And while Fraggy kind of has always had this charm of being very good and also dying a lot, which is kind of fun to watch,
charming
and all that. It is a bit of a charm. It's a bit of a charm with that kind of play style. But you know what's a little bit more charming is having a tank that's around for most of the fight. And so where Sado seems to provide that, at least early on, I think for now, you stick with Sado for a few more matches, see how he goes, and if things get rough, you bring Fraggy back again.
Safe, pragmatic take. Let's go to number 2. Back-to-back stage champions, the NYXL, are on a 9-match regular season win streak. And with 2 more wins, they can actually clinch first place overall for the season and an extra $300,000. Cha-ching! Wow. At this point, we can safely say they'll come into every match as the favourite. So looking at this remaining schedule, Mr. XL, circle a date. I want you to tell me if or when the Excelsior's winning streak is going to end.
You know what? I was going to make a joke during this, and I was going to say that it was going to end somewhere, you know, March 2019, that we were going to see them just kind of run the table for a really long time. But I saw one match on there that actually got me a little bit interested. It's the last match of their stage against the Houston Outlaws. At that point, NYXL, we know they will be the #1 seed. There's no point for them to show anything. Houston, probably playing for a playoff spot or maybe for a potential seed upgrade at that time. They're going to go really hard for that match. NYXL probably don't want to reveal anything right before the playoffs. I think if they do lose one, it'll be that one.
For the third question in our stack, we turn back to Boston. The new Stage 4 patch hasn't been too kind to the Uprising's DPS duo, especially Mistakes, whose winner was in the bottom half of the league in all major categories and Week 1. Now, he does have a deep hero pool, but as you can see, he's playing Widowmaker far more than any other hero right now. Monty, are the Uprising using your boy Mistakes in the best way possible? Does Stan and the Man need a new plan?
I think Stan and the Man does need a new plan, and it's because he hasn't had the same level of protection. If we look at the way that teams were playing against the Boston Uprising during their big win streak in the last stage, a lot of their resources of opposing teams were dedicated to dealing with Striker. Striker and Gamsu were so good with Note at creating space and pressuring the enemy backline that Mistakes didn't have a lot of pressure on himself. So with the Widowmaker now, when he's had to make decisions faster, when he's had to be more of a carry than he was previously, it really hasn't been there. So I'd like to see them switch it up potentially to more Junkrat or Pharah play, and that might alleviate some of the stress that we see him feeling right now. But if they continue to prioritize that Widowmaker, I don't see it going well for the rest of the stage.
Halfway through the 6 stack. At number 4, we're talking about the Dallas Fuel. The Stage 4 patches allowed Taimu and Seagull to return to some of their best heroes with Bakri and Farah. Also, Mickey led the league in time played on the new hero Brigitte in week 1. All that said, they haven't beaten a team that isn't the Shanghai Dragons since February 23rd.
3 months.
Here is the remaining schedule, Doa. Over, under, 0.5. Where's Dallas looking now for this stage?
Why do you give me these questions? Why do it? I'm
Seems like an
sorry.
easy
Just
answer,
throw
really.
them under the bus.
Why do you?
Just chuck 'em
Everyone's
right
gonna-
under.
Challenge Shanghai again, double or nothing.
I'm gonna have to say under. I'm sorry, Dallas, but I think you beat the Shanghai Dragons. That's great. But without effect, with the way things have been going, even with effect, I guess we could say at this point, I do not see the Fuel winning another game in 2018. I'm sorry. That's how it is.
Well, sounded like you made it hard. It sounded pretty simple to me. Number 5, the debut of Brigitte was felt throughout the league in week 1. Torbjorn's daughter was the 10th most played hero with a 24% pick rate. The league is still settling into this new meta, though, Monty. So do you think we'll see more Brigitte, less Brigitte, or average baguette throughout the rest of this
Brigitte. Say it with me.
I think we're probably going to see about maybe slightly less Brigitte. I think that as Tracer's play rate decreases and as teams get more used to swapping compositions in the middle of the game, then we'll see a little bit less as some of the other heroes start to rise. So a little bit, but she'll still be very impactful.
The 6th and final question of our 6 stack. We discussed some of the reasons the Stage 1 champion London Spitfire were looking vulnerable lately, but they do still sit in 3rd place somehow in the season standings. However, the gap is closing fast with the Gladiators and the Outlaws just 2 games behind London. Monty, will the Spitfire qualify for the playoffs? Give it to me.
I think yes, not because of how they're doing right now, but because they have such a large map differential currently, and it would require them tanking while basically everyone else winning out because they do have that big advantage. They should be already advantaged in a tie situation. So I'm going to say they probably won't be the strongest team heading into the playoffs unless they make some pretty big. I think they need to solidify their lineup. If they do that, things might change. But based on their current off-tank support musical chairs that they're doing right now, that's not going to be effective, but I think it'll at least be effective enough to get them into the playoffs.
They're kind of lucky Soul's tanking.
Yes, exactly. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Is like, as much as we can criticize the London Spitfire, the thought of them not being in the playoffs and Seoul being in the playoffs right now is confusing and probably not right.
It's been a weird last half of the season, we'll put it that way.
And you've heard Monty's ruling on the Spitfire now, but will he be so kind to some other teams? Judge Monty is about to make his return. Plus, our analysts reveal their picks for Week 2's biggest matches as Monty and Doa try to catch our nose-picking leader, Mr. X. This is Watchpoint. I feel like they could have just gotten us to move the table.
What are you laughing at me for? You're the
I was
one
laughing at
who
you.
dressed up.
Always on your phone. And
I've
all
never
the
on my
Reinhardt gab.
How many people do you think will figure out this is the same table
Watch
you
out
use
for ice climbers over here.
And just puts a cloth on. This is not very.
Look,
This is a different
I
table.
don't know if the Bar Association would approve this.
we're
I feel like
the
we've gathered
highest
to do
budget,
surgery
okay?
on this chapel, you know?
Oh, this thing is much lighter than I originally thought.
I mean, the best part is we actually are the highest budget esports show.
That is true. Yeah. Real esports talk shows coming.
Sad if true.
Oh, was it us and Hotline League? Okay.
Really? You think that's higher budget?
I'm just saying, bro. You do the math.
I don't even know what that is.
I've never heard of that.
Esports shows have just traditionally been Skype cameras, you know?
That's right.
It's true.
Like oversight.
We don't
Like
have
Oversight, a podcast with Monty, Cristo, and Thorin.
Oh, wow.
They actually had
a
they actually
novel
had
idea.
two
Like a
amazing
pretty
guests on the
show.
last show I
Fantastic,
saw.
really.
You
They
look like
had,
a deer in the headlights the whole
they had
time.
Reinforce and some other guy. The other guy was really good.
Oh, is it?
Reinforce is.
So we're in a NASA hat, but then he had
I know,
nothing
right?
smart to say, so I was kind of confused.
I know. I hide all my smart things in
I
my
love his NASA.
Where do you hide the smart things?
in my nest hat.
Because you're about to be sent to esports prison, you know.
You're not wearing that hat now, so what are we supposed to expect from you
Oh,
on the
just
show
wait,
today?
just wait, just wait. I have a lot of stuff planned.
He's wearing something.
But it's in your hat.
I have so many
he's He's going to wear the NYXL hat and be smart that way.
I see.
Go back to the first episode. I said they were going to win the league. That was like, oh, Seoul Dynasty is going to be #1. Yeah.
No, I said actually, I said London was going to be the top team.
would win stage.
And I was wrong about that too, but like in a different way.
When that happened?
It must be so good just having
London.
like a selective memory.
I said London in the preseason too. I said London was going to win it all.
Well, I thought Seoul would win stage 3, so I don't know what I was on. That was.
I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted Jaehong Tang. I mean, here I am, but you know.
This is so perfect for you, by the way.
I know, right?
Seoul.
All rise, the Honorable Judge Monty presiding.
Please be seated, everyone. Well, another day, another batch Overwatch League miscreants to deal with. Let's see. Who's first? Oh, it's a big one right off the bat. Boston Uprising. You are facing charges of falsifying fan confidence for an entire stage. You were under suspicion after losing the Stage 3 championship, and now you've lost your first 2 matches this stage, and you look helpless in this meta. How do you plead?
Not guilty, Judge Monty. The fans have a lot to be proud of our Boston Uprising. Now, we looked great in the previous stage. We lose our first 2 at the beginning, but mistakes didn't play that great on Widowmaker, and Gamsu had an off game on Reinhardt. Once those 2 guys get back to playing at the level we've seen from them in the past and Striker can play his best, we'll be right back on track.
What you're saying sounds nice, but this case will have to move it to a trial. In the meantime, you are released on your own recognizance to reestablish league dominance and prove once again that Striker is, in fact, an MVP candidate. Case closed. Okay. Next on the docket for today. Looks like we have a violent offender facing allegations for a rather heinous crime. Seoul Dynasty. You'll be answering to the charges against Ryu Jae-hong for impersonating a main tank. The police report here says that you've been running Ryu Jae-hong at main tank for your last 4 matches. You've also been charged with negligence to a Reinhardt heavy meta. How do you plead, Seoul Dynasty?
I plead not guilty, absolutely. I mean, of course, Seoul Dynasty here to represent our main tank, Jae-hong. We would actually contest that he has never played main tank before recently. I mean, you remember all those seasons in Korea where he was a great main tank. Lunatic High winning a lot of tournaments on main tank. You remember Judge, right? You talk to our guy? Around before the trial?
Stop, Seoul Dynasty.
Yeah.
Listening to the facts and looking at these statistics, I do find you guilty of impersonating a main tank. I will set bail.
It wasn't me.
Jae-hong, your player, and you are responsible for him. I will set bail at 1 victory for the Seoul Dynasty with Jae-hong on main tank.
I don't know if you're going to get
under the condition that he undergo rigorous main tank scrim therapy to officially change positions.
It's ridiculous.
Bailiff, please remove the defendant.
No, you can't do it.
Get out of here. Okay. Judge Monty has been working for several minutes today, so as you know, it's almost time for lunch. We'll squeeze in one more case beforehand, though. It's the people of Texas versus the Dallas Fuel. Mr. Fuel, under these conditions, you're looking awfully chipper this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, well, we're 1 win, 1 loss. We're 500 for this stage, so I'm feeling all right.
Be that as it may, you stand here accused of 18 counts of failure to defeat a team other than the Shanghai Dragons. I see here that your last win was against another team way back on February 23rd. That's nearly 3 months ago. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But our best DPS left the country twice. We had to fire our coach, and then we couldn't even find a main tank to play. Had to move our DPS player onto Winston. And we had so much pressure to be the best Western team, and so far we're the worst one.
Well, at least you've got some compelling excuses, Dallas Fuel. How do you plead?
Guilty, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I do sense a legitimate remorse from you and a deep pain few other Overwatch League teams have felt. And because I'm feeling just a little warm and fuzzy today, I'm going to give you a break. You're getting off with probation for the remainder of the season. Every player on your roster has until the end of the Stage 4 to prove they belong on the Dallas Fuel next season. A hearing will be scheduled prior to Season 2, at which time we will evaluate your progress. You had better get that roster in order by then. You understand?
Blue.
This court is in recess.
지금 라인하르트에서 가장 재밌는 점이라고 하면은 궁극기를 짜릿하게 모두 많은 대상을 상대로 맞추는 건데.
With Reinhardt, it's mostly about the little things. It's mostly a lot of like little things that you need to adjust on the fly.
They are the forest and he is the lumberjack.
라인하르트 싸움을 서로 하게 되면 이제 방벽을 어느 정도 눈치 있게 남겨주면서 방벽을 보존을 잘하는 팀이 싸움을 길게 가면 이길 수 있는데 그래서
Welcome to the gesture show. Admission is free.
So you put your shield up. That's most for like covering your team, holding choke points.
돌진은 일반적으로 팀원들이 한 번에 이동 속도 버프 같은 거 받고 들어가 줄 때 이제
The charge! Oh, he finds Asher at the end of it.
It's a risky ability, so most of the time you don't really want to use it until it's absolutely necessary.
Go! Oh, we're going pure fraggy right now!
우리 아군 브리기테랑 같이 합을 맞춰가지고 상대팀 라인하르트를 기절시키고 돌진을 박는 게 아니라면 돌진을 웬만하면 안 쓰는 게 가장 좋습니다.
Fire strike, usually you want to save it for times when enemy teams are crossing to choke points.
요즘 같은 경우는 방벽을 들어야 하는 시간이 많기 때문에 궁극기를 채우기 좀 힘들어요. 근데 화염 강타를 잘 맞추면 궁극기가 빨리 차가지고 가장 중요한 스킬 중 하나라고 생각합니다.
그나마 라인하르트에게 있는 유일한 원거리 견제 스킬이기도 해요.
Earthshatter is a pretty tricky ultimate to use.
Oh, what? How did he get behind him? Fraggy!
대지 분쇄는 일단 라인하르트를 쓰는 어떻게 보면 궁극적인 이유 중에 하나인 오버워치에서 제일 강력한 CC 스킬 중 하나고
라인하르트한테 가장 중요한 거는 제가 봤을 땐 대지 분쇄입니다. 그러니까 화염 강타를 좀 못 맞추고 뭐 돌진 좀 못 쓰더라도 대지 분쇄 한 번만 대박 나면은 모든 게 다 이전에 못했던 게 다 사라지는.
Here, right through the middle of it. Boom!
It was really difficult to play Reinhardt against dive comps, but Brigitte is really strong against those comps. So with Brigitte in the meta, it's more easy to play Reinhardt.
To back away, but he's going to charge back. What? Welcome to Fraggy Town.
그저 우리 팀 아군 브리기테가 얼마만큼의 합이 잘 맞는지가 중요하고 그거를 노려가지고 상대팀 라인을 먼저 죽이든지 우리 팀 라인이 먼저 죽든지가 지금 메타의 핵심인 것 같습니다.
For you guys out there, I think with Reinhardt, you shouldn't keep your shield up unnecessary.
The shield is melting though. He's got to be careful.
맵 구조상 상대와 이제 최소한 반반을 가져갈 수 있는 포지셔닝을 팀원들에게 해줄 수 있게.
And try to play around corner slots. That's good for Reinhardt, so you don't just need to like keep your shield up all the time. Just play corners and you can swing your hammer and stuff like that.
라인하르트 할 때 제일 재밌는 점은 아무래도 뭔가 돌진으로 상대를 한 번에 죽였을 때나 아니면은 대지 분쇄로 상대를 다 눕혔을 때가 제일 재밌는 거예요.
They're finding all of these kills and they're sticking together as like this killer death ball.
Reinhardt play is on the rise in Stage 4, a pick rate of nearly 37% in Week 1. Fisher led the league in elims per 10, while Fraggy's replacement Sato was third. Sato also had the second fewest deaths, behind Mumo. Well, it's the moment the Overwatch world has probably been waiting, maybe one of you been waiting for. Your match predictions.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Before we get to this week's picks, though, I want to update everybody on our prediction.
You should.
Standings. You'd love this, wouldn't you, Matt? Mr. X is in the lead for the season with 147. Doa has pulled into a tie with his casting partner, Monty.
I'm still very happy about this.
At 146.
I feel good.
4 weeks left before we declare a winner in this close race. Let's see who you guys pick for Wednesday. Cha-cha! Nobody will be gaining any ground on Mr. X here because all of you have the second-ranked Boston Uprising over the 10th-ranked Dallas Fuel. Everyone likes the LA Valiant over the Florida Mayhem in the battle of 2 Stage 4 undefeateds. You all have Houston Outlaws over the Gladiators.
I'm surprised nobody picked Gladiators.
You know, I was thinking about it and then I looked at the map pool.
Oh, it gets better. Moving on to Thursday. All 3 gents have the LA Gladiators over the Mayhem, the Red Hot Philly Fusion over the winless Shanghai Dragons, but Doa is predicting that San Francisco will shock the reeling London Spitfire. Doa, shields up, big fella. Defend your Bay Area pick against our picks leader, Mr. Rex.
This is my time.
Make my argument for me, Doa.
You know, I was having lunch today, and I ran into Harsha, and I'm like, hey, man, I have to debate Matt for this thing today.
Yeah.
Why do you think I should say you're going to win? And he just goes, we have Krusty. So there you go. Harsha thinks that the organization of the team is looking a little bit better lately. He thinks the coaching is a bit better.
I know.
And I think that you look at guys like Architect, you look at the impact Super and Sinatra have had. I think legitimately with the way London has been performing,
that's going to
Jock is going to win.
That the London Spitfire are going to win, as long as they don't do this, rotating door with their lineup.
Which they're absolutely going to do. That's what they've been doing for like 3 stages now.
I just want to say this much. I was very satisfied now to see you eat your own medicine by him talking for 90% of the time and then you having to make an argument in 5 seconds.
But I still made an argument that wins, though.
You did. You get the ultimate practice for making an argument in 5 seconds because you monopolize all the time.
He's the one that monopolizes it. That's what I'm bringing it back for.
The important thing is I'm going to win this prediction just like I've won nearly all the other ones against.
But that's not true because you're down at the bottom.
99%.
If I need to get Little Boy Pete with my crook out here and yank you guys out, I will do it. That does it for MLG's Watchpoint. Who will it be? Will it be San Francisco or London? Check out next week. Week 2 beginning Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. Pacific on OverwatchLeague.com and the Overwatch League app. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.